Hey everyone, yes, it's happened once again. Rockstar has unleashed another gameplay trailer of Red Dead Redemption 2, and just like the last one, the developer is promising that what we're looking at here is indeed captured from in-game footage. Similarly, the studio has delivered a 4K video file, so yes, the chances are that once again we're looking at native PlayStation 4 Pro output. In this video I'll be summarizing the resolution and frame rate. But yeah, that's not the focus. I'll be talking more about the world building that Rockstar is delivering here and focusing on what's really catching my eye here, some of the craft that's going into this phenomenal looking game. I mean, everywhere you look, it's pretty impressive. So let's begin by taking a look at the latest video on a more general level. It picks up exactly where the first gameplay trailer left off. And I wouldn't be surprised if the content was captured at the exact same time. So we kick off with a punch up on a train, and there's a question that sticks with me throughout the video, which is simply this: what is actually playable here and what is cutscene? There's a beautiful sense of cinema throughout both gameplay trailers, and make no mistake, everything is indeed running in real time. There's no video sequences here as such, but it may well be the case that aspects of the game where the player has control comes down to when the HUD is on screen, specifically that little mini-map there in the bottom left. Our look at the initial train sequence ends with a stunning vista shot. Looks like time of day has moved on here significantly since the initial opener, but it's a reminder of one of the Rage engine's key upgrades in the new game, a strong focus on volumetric lighting. I'm not going to dwell on this too much for now, but suffice to say it's a key element of the aesthetic, drenching the scene with atmosphere that takes it beyond a lot of the gaming open worlds we've seen. And if we switch over to a scene that doesn't feature it so heavily, a building interior during a heist for example, there's a look that's more in line with the kind of results we saw at a visual level in GTA 5. But yeah, it's in the great outdoors where Red Dead 2 delivers its most remarkable visuals, and for my money it's because of three key elements: detail, consistency, and ambience. Consistency doesn't sound particularly sexy, but I reckon it's crucial to the presentation here. I think developers have a lot of latitude in how they create their open worlds, but it's the artifacts that stand out that kill the illusion of immersion, the blemishes if you like. Typical to this kind of game would be objects popping in from nowhere, lower detail models noticeably shifting to higher quality ones as you move closer to them, shadow cascades that lower in quality the further into the scene you look, not to mention poor anti-aliasing on stuff like foliage, making it shimmer in motion. Now obviously we're only seeing carefully curated game clips in the 10 minutes of gameplay released to date across the two trailers, but virtually all of these artifacts aren't present in Red Dead 2. Rockstar has set a high standard here and ensured consistency there throughout the game. The second point, detail, and this starts with foliage. This kinda speaks for itself, I feel. Rockstar experimented with detail-rich grass and other flora in GTA 5, and of course it was one of the few differences between the Xbox One and PS4 versions of that game. Rockstar seems more confident in using more of it this time around, but the look is more consistent with fewer aliasing artifacts. Trees can be included in that too. They look remarkably solid with no obvious pixel popping or shimmering. And as for atmosphere, that third point, well, inevitably we're drawn back to those volumetric effects and just how spectacular they look. First of all, they're invaluable in setting the stage in terms of the sheer distance you get in the game's many vista shots. Atmospheric rendering kinda relies on volumetrics to emphasize this effect, and in Red Dead 2, I think we're getting a genuine masterclass here based on what we've seen so far. At closer range, the effect is still of the utmost importance, so in this scene here, crepuscular rays beam through the foliage and there's the sense of fog remnants lurking on the ground there. It looks like a voxel-based implementation is in effect here, similar to the excellent effect seen in the recent Shadow the Tomb Raider. Volumetrics also play a key but also quite a subtle role in establishing contrast, as you can see in some of the indoor scenes. For want of a better phrase, there's a sense of weight to the outdoor light as it bleeds into the interiors. Now, I've got to admit, I'm going to be fascinated to see how this one plays out in HDR. Microsoft's list of Xbox One X enhanced titles confirms that HDR will be supported, presumably for PlayStation platforms too. Finally, it's interesting to compare scenes that use volumetrics heavily with those that don't. So yeah, let's return to that opening train shot again. Time of day and location here sees volumetrics pretty much absent from the scene, and much of Red Dead 2's signature look is kind of absent too as a result. Compare and contrast to the train scene that follows immediately afterwards, and yeah, we're looking at a night and day difference here. Volumetrics are also key in setting the scene for the game's weather effects, as seen here when Arthur is being held up by the gunman. Lighting and fog really sells the effect, that ambience I was talking about earlier. Again, contrast in this scene is remarkable, and it should look suitably epic on a proper HDR screen. Detail extends to a vast range of elements in the game's visual makeup. Rockstar experimented with parallax occlusion mapping to give depth to ground textures in GTA 5, but the boat is well and truly pushed out here. You can tell we're still in console land here, as a nisotropic filtering quality still isn't completely ideal, but the notion of deforming the ground dynamically extends to snow rendering too. The effect here reminds me very much of Rise of the Tomb Raider, which did a stunning job, and by extension this poses questions about the nature of the open world in Red Dead 2. The clips we see run the gamut of the seasons. We see bright summer days, for example, plus the depths of winter. What we do know, of course, is that the Rage engine is remarkably adept at simulating world conditions. The original Red Dead, and indeed GTA 4 and 5, not only simulated a full 24-hour time of day cycle, but could also display a range of weather conditions, and scene lighting could even be radically influenced by cloud cover. But the snowy scenes here are fascinating in that we see both a basic dusting in a crisp winter's day, as well as proper knee-high drifts. Time of day in this engine is an established feature, of course, but what about time of year? I think this would be key to storytelling and character progression. Rockstar would be able to accurately map not just the passing of days, but months and years. But let's return to the visuals and discuss post-processing. So previously we've talked about temporal anti-aliasing in this title. It's effectively the idea of taking data from previously rendered frames and injecting it into the current one. It's pretty much the standard these days in most modern game engines, and it's part of the reason why Red Dead 2 looks so stable, particularly in terms of foliage, which is always a troublesome element. It also helps lend the game a more filmic look, as it tends to add a very slight blur to high frequency detail. It's also relatively cheap to process, saving on GPU resources, something that's crucial for consoles. The fact we're on consoles, a fixed platform with limited GPU capabilities, perhaps explains the depth of field effect too. There's no lavish bokeh here, no variation in focus according to distance from the game camera, but yeah, tied into the excellent volumetrics, the effect works. A lot of the really hard work in the rendering is carried out by the lighting system, which represents a considerable upgrade over its outing in GTA 5. Materials interact beautifully with lighting in every scene. Material properties seen on the likes of skin, cloth, leather, metal, animal furs all look exactly as they should. This might even pass by unnoticed by and large, as many scenes just kind of look correct, but there are scenes which showcase this technique beautifully. Moonlight reflecting from wet mud in particular is a classic, and here it is in Red Dead 2. By extension, character rendering is on another level too compared to previous Rage games, though with the sheer wealth of characters in this game, many of the NPCs lack the kind of detail seen on major characters. Animation though? Well, this is where the game enjoys some massive upgrades. We've previously talked about how well the horses move, how well musculature is rendered, and how animation blends seamlessly. But I honestly think we're going to need to see the full game, and specifically more actual gameplay, to see how well this all plays out. Based on the snippets we get in the two gameplay trailers, I suspect it'll be rather impressive. And animation quality, well, this leads me on to another point. In this second gameplay trailer, Rockstar introduces us to the first-person mode. So this is a surprise, but perhaps not completely unexpected, as the mode was introduced in the current gen version of GTA 5. Again, only snippets are revealed in the trailer, but it does serve to emphasize how good the animation quality has to be. Not only does it have to stand up in the standard third-person mode, it also needs to work effectively in first-person too. And on top of that, scenes like this suggest some kind of limited, or perhaps not, set-piece action that's actually integrated into gameplay. So yeah, the animation and direction here needs to hold up from two entirely different viewpoints. Going to be interested to see how that one checks out. But one minor curiosity we picked up on is that the first-person view demonstrates a very slight amount of per-object motion blur present on the view weapon. Doesn't seem to be anywhere else, mind you. And the rest of the presentation, whether it's first or third person, has no motion blur at all. And I do kind of think this does help in a 30 FPS game. Now we know Rage supports it, so I'm curious if there'll be any option for it at all. So, what's the overall takeaway here? Well, it's really all about what defines a Rockstar epic, and it's really, from my perspective, about three things. There's the story, of course, the journey the characters go on, and we aren't going to be getting any spoilers here, or much of a sense of any of this from the 10 minutes of gameplay footage we've seen so far. Secondly, I'd say that it's all about the quality of the open world. In this video, I've talked about just a small amount of the visual technologies Rockstar is using to create what may well be its most convincing game world yet. There's a genuine evolution here in terms of scale, scope, and fidelity. And finally, it's not just about the world itself, but the amount of stuff the player has got to do in it. And that's kind of the point, I think, of this second trailer, to demonstrate the level of opportunity here for the player. The fact that the world is indeed your oyster and you're free to do whatever it is you want to do, be it playing the hero, holding up banks, gambling, visiting shows, and I'm sure there's a ton more stuff yet to be revealed. And on a more general level, what excites me about this game, over and above everything we've seen in the footage so far, is the idea that Rockstar has essentially been given all the time, money and resources it needs to create the game it wants to create. I mean, that's a colossal amount of freedom. GTA 5 came out on the current gen machines in November 2014, and that was an enhanced port of an existing game. Almost 4 years have passed since that adaptation launched. We're at the maturation point of the current generation, and we're finally getting an entirely new Rockstar game, finally, where the limitations that apply to most game developers are just off the table here. So yeah, I'll end with a quick discussion on the technical basics of the trailer 2 footage. It's essentially a similar setup to the first trailer and likely captured from PS4 Pro, so there is the same 1920 by 2160 base resolution with signs of reconstruction delivering a maximum 3840 by 2160. Now, for the most part, this 2:1 pixel aspect ratio isn't completely ideal, so I will be interested to see how Rockstar chooses to deploy the extra rendering resources of Xbox One X. Oh yeah, again, just like trailer 1, Microsoft has a version of this asset with Xbox button prompts, but just like last time, we're pretty sure this is pro footage with new button overlays. So the qualities of the Xbox One X version right now remain unknown and likely will until launch. This trailer is only a 30 FPS asset, so it's far from ideal for performance analysis, but what I can say is that every frame in there is unique. Not making any promises here on performance, but if this is a direct in-game capture, signs are looking good on that front. So there we are then, mere weeks away from launch, and I'm really excited by this one. We'll return with more analysis as and when we can, but that's all from me for now. Please like and subscribe to support our work and ring the bell for instant notifications whenever a new DF video drops. If you want to see this video or the source trailer asset at the absolute highest quality possible, please consider the DF Patreon to support the team more directly and get access to pristine quality downloads. But that's all from me for now. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video, and yeah, thanks for watching.